Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Thursday to you. Almost through another week. I'm Kevin Rouch. This is the Scrum. Glad you've joined us today. Brought to you from Studio B in the Elmwood Media Complex. Just down the stairs from Studio A, as it turns out. You know, we got some things to talk about today. It's just going to be me today, no guest. Boy, we enjoyed having Ralph Shudell on Tuesday. A lot of fun having him on the team now and helping us out. Great photographers, we mentioned, and heading up our photography program to be able to sell at a less than even reasonable rate our high school photographs primarily to the public, to families, aunts and uncles, grandparents, parents of our C-Bus area teams and athletes. And, you know, keep in mind, when we say Columbus area teams, we're talking about, well, more than 100 teams. Because we do Franklin County, the contiguous counties, and a few outside that, because they're either in leagues that feature mostly Franklin County and the contiguous counties, or because they end up playing a lot of those teams anyway, even if they're not in the same league. So we include places like Marion County and Knox County and Morrow County. So over 100 teams. And we're going to try to get to as many as we can, as many sports as we can with our photographers so that people can purchase those. And again, extremely reasonable rate for a digital copy that you can then do whatever you want with. And they'll be high resolution and from our professional photographers. So it was good to have Ralph on to talk about the system we're going to use and how people can get those photographs. So we'll have him on again before the football season starts, because that's the biggest one we've got. And I don't think we have over 100 football teams, but we've got a lot. Now, we're going to do the other sports too, so don't forget about that. I mean, we're not just, this isn't just a football thing. It's just that's where the most attention is at the moment. We're going to try to bring more attention to other things. Field hockey, soccer, girls volleyball, girls tennis in the fall, cross country, field hockey. I mean, Central Ohio has one of the great field hockey stories in recent memory, and Thomas Worthington, 4-time champion. So we're going to get out there and see the Cardinals play. So we want to make those available and do it at a rate that makes sense and helps us tell the stories as well. Make sure our photographers are paid. We don't want volunteers. For those of us that have volunteered a lot of time over the years at these things, don't mind doing that when it's appropriate, but, you know, I can't ask folks to go out there and do it for nothing. So anyway, that's the way we're going to pay, and that's the way we're going to make it, and hopefully it all works out. So we'll have Ralph on again to talk about it. Okay. Today there's been good news and bad news today for us. The bad news got worked out and then was overshadowed by the good news. And this is within the organization. Because we're going to end up talking today about news yesterday from the Blue Jackets that got me going a little bit. And then I did a little research on it, and I want to present both sides of the issue and tell you my thoughts about it. That was what will be now the simultaneous broadcast using the TV announcers to populate the radio feed. In other words, you're going to hear Steve Mears and Jody Shelley on TV as usual, but no more Bob McElligott. It will be Steve and Jody on the radio as well. I want to tell you what I think about that, why it was done, and trying to be fair, but why it's going to be a challenge for the listener. We'll do that at the end of the day. But before we do that, I want to talk about let's talk about the bad news first. We started today. This has been a process. We started an email newsletter because, well, you just have to. If you have a website and are kind of a news, and we're a sports news outlet, you got to have a newsletter. It's just part of the deal. It gives your advertisers something else to be on. What we call advertiser inventory, gives you a little more inventory. And it has been a nightmare to try to get this thing going because now again, I have designed websites in my past. I was kind of an early adopter of technology. I'm a little bit older, and so I've mentioned a couple times on this show, the first discrimination I suffered in life was people seeing my gray hair and thinking that I don't understand technology. Now, I'm not saying I'm the expert on it, but I've been around it since I started using it in college. Well, actually, in law school, really, in the 80s. I graduated from a typewriter where you could erase the type to a computer with floppy disks and a dot matrix printer, the loudest printer in the history of the world. So I like technology, and I learned how to do websites. That's how I got a job with the Frontier League, Independent Minor League, eventually becoming their general counsel. But I got my foot in the door by doing their website. And that was in the early 90s. So I've been doing this a while. So I tasked myself with doing this newsletter and designing it and sending it out. And I designed it on Canva. A lot of people are using that now. And I did everything I was supposed to do. I thought. Went to the service we were using to send it out. Took the zip file, dragged and dropped where I was supposed to, did a preview. It said, this is what it's going to look like. It was what I wanted. Send yourself a test email. Did that. It's what I wanted. And then sent it out to the people that were subscribed. And again, most of those folks in this first iteration of this were mostly kind of friends and staff. And I described it later as a finger painting. It was awful. The formatting was, you couldn't make heads or tails of it. It was just terrible. So then I go back to the email marketing company that we paid to do this. And I can't get a human being. All I got was AI. And the thing that is both good and bad about AI is they tell you things that you want to hear until the nice words they send you are not responding to what your problem is. And my problem is basically, look, you told me this was okay. And then when it got sent out, it wasn't. And AI wanted to know, is the left margin and is it centered and all this, the HTML, the coding stuff, which we could go back and forth on for hours. And I just said, look, you said it was going to look like this and it didn't. It said, well, here's what happened. It renders differently in the preview and then what you send out, which to me was, then why do it? Why have a preview? But that was the answer. And then I said, I'd like to talk to a human being. I thought I'd give it a shot. You never know. And the AI assistant came back and said, yeah, I'm not allowed to do that. And then I said something like, I'm going to go on and talk bad about you and, say all these terrible things. And didn't matter. They still sent back platitudes like, we totally understand. I would be mad too. But let's talk about the HTML. So I had switched to that company because I wanted to save a little bit of money. The company wanted to save a little bit of money. I went back to the original one where we still had an account. And it sent it out perfectly. So that was the good news. But I'm not opposed to AI. It can be helpful. Again, we don't write our stories that way or embellish our photography with it, other than basic editing, which is really going back to the first editing is AI in a way. Whenever you increase the contrast or lighten an image in a way, that's artificial. But we don't add elements into the photo that aren't there and, that kind of stuff. Add a different sky and, we don't do that. So I like AI for what it's intended for, and that is kind of streamline your operation. Today, it was just maddening. Trying to be so nice and yet telling me basically to, and at the end it said, oh, we understand, but you do what you have to do, basically. So I just decided to not go crazy and name the company yet. It just depends how I sit on that for a while. But anyway, we got it out. So what I want to tell you now, if you go to our front page at cbussports.com, you can sign up for the newsletter there. It's already been tried and tested and scrambled up and done terribly, and now it was done right today, eventually. So that's the good news. But AI, wow, when it's evil, it is impenetrable. You cannot get to a human being. And then if you don't get the problem solved through that, you are SOL. All right, that was the bad turn into good, but I want to tell you a really good thing that happened today. We are going to start. So in the newsletter, you would have seen a picture of Brady Barnum from Dublin Jerome, a golfer who won the state title last year. Had a chance to take photos of him down at Zanesville Country Club when Upper Arlington hosts an event down there. And that's my hometown, so I go down there and hang out a little bit and then take photos. And we got Brady Barnum down there, and so we put him up. But anyway, he won all that. He's going to University of Georgia. This is a really good player. But that started yesterday. The golf season started yesterday, although a lot of them in earnest will get going this weekend and early next week. The other sports in the fall, which I reeled off before, they start practice tomorrow. That is Friday. So it is happening. And we are ready for it. This is going to be our biggest fall ever. So I decided that I kind of looked at the golf events that were going on with local participants so that we can get some stock photos early and get a couple of stories started and just basically do some recon. And I found out that the Dublin Jerome girls, who were the champions last year and have a storied history, are going up to play at Hudson High School's tournament on Monday. And so we're going to go cover that. I think it's Lake Forest Country Club up there, just south of Cleveland. But Olentangy will be there, Olentangy Orange, New Albany. So I'm going to go up there and cover that, take some photos, but you've got to let them know you're coming, so you don't show up with this long lens and they wonder who you are. So I got in touch with their golf coach up there at Hudson, a guy by the name of Bobby Bolin, Bolin. Great guy. And it's funny because we're going to sell some photos coming out. I wanted to let him know about that. And then the host we usually try to send, and to some athletic departments, we'll send some photos that they can use. That's kind of what we offer to them is here's some photos coming your way. You can use them for whatever you want. Like last year we did that for a Gahanna wrestling event, and Gahanna requires you to send them photos you take there. So we did, and they used it in some social media stuff, and we were happy to see that. So going up there, and I talked to him, and it's funny, he has a website, which I'm going to tell you is called Ohio HS Golf. So Ohio High School Golf, ohiohsgolf.com. And he really covers girls golf in Northeast Ohio, but he told me he didn't make the the URL longer because it just got silly if he starts putting Northeast and girls. So he has this great website domain, ohiohsgolf.com. I said, well, we might be able to help you work with that. But he's got a nice website of stuff going on up there in Northeast Ohio. And, he just asked me if he could use some of the photos in his coverage. And we said, absolutely. And we'll send you some of your team as well. So that's what we're doing Monday afternoon. Going up north. Couple-hour drive, but worth it. But that was the good news coming out of today. After dealing with AI, I got to talk to a human being, and that went well. So I look forward to that very much, of going up there and hanging out. Let me tell you, too, let me get back to this. I want to tell you who else is going to be there so I don't mess this up. Let's see if I've got that up here still. I think I do. So as we schedule all this out, but I wanted to tell you, so also up there, so as I mentioned, Upper Arlington, Olentangy, Berlin, New Albany, Olentangy, Orange, Dublin, Jerome will all be there. And those are really good programs, so we'll do that. But a lot of from Northeastern Ohio as well that we'll try to help them out and see, maybe they'll buy some pictures from up there. We'll see. So that's going on. Now, let's get to kind of the big news of the day that came through yesterday. And we've got a story up now on CBUS Sports. You can get it off the front page about Bob McElligot's contract not being renewed. Now, I got to know Bob over the last few years as we started covering the Blue Jackets halfway through the 2022-23 season, because we started in February of 2023. And the Blue Jackets were nice enough to give us a credential right out of the chute, kind of validated what we were doing. And I had already had a partial season ticket plan. And so I can remember telling my wife as we were watching a game that, boy, as we start this new project, I'd love to be up there. And when I pointed to press row and found myself there not too much longer after that. And I've been lucky enough to cover them quite a bit since then. And they're just really good people. I have no issues with any of the, I guess what's the kind of media relations folks there. They've all been super kind to me and supportive of what I've done, never treated me less than, people that we are probably less than. So it's been nice. And the relationships, getting to know and talk to people like Aaron Portsline and Brian Hedger and Michael A. Race and, just keep going down the list. And of course, it's where I met Ed Francis, who now helps us out quite a bit, and whose advice has been instrumental in us growing this venture. We actually sat next to each other because he works for First Ohio Battery. But again, it was just great to meet all these people and still work. I was on a press conference yesterday. We had a chance to do a Zoom interview with Cole Sillinger after he just signed a new 3-year deal. So I take it very seriously, and again, they've been very nice. But I've gotten to know Bob McElligott a little bit. Enjoyed his radio broadcasts. Love it when the Blue Jackets score, because he's got something ready. He's got something teed up, no matter who it is. And it's like Chris Berman and a step up from SportsCenter in terms of names fitting into the call and, the things that are hard to do. But he has a background in minor league baseball. I mean, he's still doing it. He did the game today, the game with the Columbus Clippers. He helps Ryan Mitchell there when the Clippers play at home. I mean, he worked his way up through all the way to Syracuse. But like I did, I operated at the independent league level, so one of the lower rungs of the ladder, and we talked about those. We knew some common folks, and we're in some of the same cities once in a while, and on his path on the way up. One of his first destinations in hockey was at Johnstown, Pennsylvania. He's a Pennsylvania guy and worked in Johnstown, and I know that rink pretty well. That's where they made the movie Slapshot, in Johnstown. But the Frontier League, where I worked in baseball, there was a team there, and I did a lot of games in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So we had a lot to talk about. Kind of swapping, old stories and enjoyed it. Well, he's been there 17 years now with the Blue Jackets. And yesterday we found out, and he found out. And maybe he had some inkling or they talked to him before, but he said in a tweet yesterday that he had learned about it yesterday, that his contract's not going to be renewed after 17 years. And what the Blue Jackets are going to do is simulcast their TV feed on radio. Now, you've got two announcers that are going to be heard now on radio with a lot of experience. Steve Mears comes from doing games in Pittsburgh and now been in Columbus and settled in after Jeff Rimmer had been doing the games, a legend. And Mears, I mean, on TV, he's got beautiful voice, beautiful pipes. I don't think he misidentifies anything. Again, I've done a lot of radio in my life, a lot of radio play-by-play, some TV work and some internet work, and I've done a little bit of hockey. Just to know enough when you hear somebody that's really good. So the Jackets aren't going to get cheated in the work done by Steve Mears and Jody Shelley. I think Jody Shelley is one of the best color analysts in the country. I have a lot, and again, I like Steve Mears fine. I don't know him as well. Don't know of his work as much as I know about Jody Shelley, having been a fan when he played and seen what he's done after his career, which is totally embrace Columbus and the Blue Jackets alumni and what it means to be a Blue Jacket, what it means to be a former professional athlete living in Columbus, Ohio. And I am an enthusiastic fan of Jody Shelley, having seen him do all these things over the years. I think he's one of the best color guys. And that's why he's getting time now on the national networks. I think that's only going to increase for Jody. I think he's that good. So, again, fans are not going to be cheated in a sense because the quality of broadcasters still going to be high. Having said all that, and having broadcast both on radio, hundreds and hundreds of games on radio, and a decent amount over the years on television down in my hometown of Zanesville, and having done internet since 2005, when it first was available to us to do in any kind of inexpensive way, relatively inexpensive way. We did that at the high school level starting in 2005. So I've done a lot of broadcasts. Here's why I was disheartened to hear this news. Number one, I was disheartened for Bob. And we've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of comments about that in support of Bob and what he's going to do. Bob's a talented guy, and whether he's going to be in hockey or baseball or some other sport, he did high school football the past, I don't know how many years, doing Hartley games on a production put together by my friend Adam Dell. He's just one of those guys, he can do the sport. You listen to his baseball broadcast, he knows exactly what he's doing. So he'll be fine. Just felt bad for him. That's a tough thing to learn after 17 years. That's a major chunk of your life. But the reason, apart from Bob, who again, that's the primary concern. But let's talk about the nuts and bolts of this stuff. A TV broadcast, and I want to say this simply, and then I'm going to tell you why the Jackets made this decision, and it wasn't just to be cheap, given the new model they have to deal with. I'm not too sure it's going to end up with fans as happy as they want them to be. But it wasn't done out of any kind of rancor or being just wanting to shed dollars for no reason. Okay. Having said all that, let me tell you why it's not the same. And a lot of you know this, but I just want to underscore it because I don't know if I'll listen to the radio broadcast. Let's start with some of the misconceptions. I want to tell you another misconception that happened when I was doing baseball radio. I found out I had a job with the Chillicothe Paints. I got an announcer's job at Chillicothe Paints. This is, in the 1990s. And independent baseball, Frontier League, they ended up working in the front office for. And they said, well, we only do half the games. I said, well, that's perfect. I have a day job. Chillicothe's not that far away. I'll be able to drive down there, no problem. And they go, oh, no. We do the away games only. Yikes. We had teams in Chicago and St. Louis and Washington, PA, just south of Pittsburgh. There was some traveling involved. And that's what I did because I wanted to do it. I figured out a way. I got one of those Zach Morris phones. That was about that time. And I did business while traveling on that Zach Morris phone. Had one of the first effective laptops to run your business and tune into your desktop computer from the road and that kind of stuff. Because there was a misconception at that time that if you did the home games, people wouldn't show up. And while I like to think that my announcing was pretty good and I was able to give people the mental picture of what was going on, I think being there in person, you just never replace that. And in fact, if everybody, I think that sports for a lot of people is their soap opera. They keep up on it. They want to know the personalities. They want to know day to day what's happening, the controversy, the personality of the various players, the front office, what's going on with other teams, what's possible conspiracy theories. It's just they love it. So if you can go and give them information, it doesn't matter where it's coming from, home, away. They will gather it in when they can't make the game and then come to as many games as possible. And I think your attendance goes up. That's what we've seen is if you have home radio in these little minor leagues, you get more people at the games because they can keep up with everything all the time. And if you've got a radio announcer that knows how to work with that element, tell the stories of what's going on around the team, people don't want to miss the broadcast when they're not there. And here's the thing, they'll come to the game and listen to the radio while they're there. That was the biggest compliment ever as a play-by-play guy, is to do the game and have people in the stands with, in my day, it was the little white cord, the one going into one ear from a transistor radio. And then we got like those headphones that had an antenna on the headphones because we were on AM radio and also FM. But I mean, point is, it didn't, what was thought about it didn't hold any water. This is a little bit different with this simulcast, but again, I want to tell you why. All right, one last illustration, and then we'll get into the meat of this. I listen to, I travel a lot around the area, and so I listen to a lot of radio. I've got Sirius XM both on my phone and on the car. And when the World Cup was going on with some day games, day matches, I was listening on the Sirius XM channel that had the play-by-play, but it turned out it was the TV feed. And so I got a real chance to remind myself why I would rather listen to a straight radio broadcast. Here it is. The first time I ever did a TV, I was a radio guy for many, many years before I did my first TV game. And I was told after the TV game that I over-explained. They can see the players. They can see, and it was basketball in this case, they can see the shot go up. I don't have to tell them that it's a three-pointer. I don't have to tell them the score or the time left because all that was on the lower third. When you're on radio, you got to do all that stuff. The one piece of advice my dad gave me, who did many, many years of play-by-play on the radio, you don't have to get every pass, but if the crowd roars, you got to tell the audience why. You can't talk over that. But I tried my darndest to get as many passes as I could in there. Who was fighting whom for a rebound? Who had the assist? How far the shot was out? Oh, and the score, here it is again. And how much time left. And now you've got, we work with Battle in the 614 that's going to have a shot clock again this year for a high school, three high school events, 3 weekends. So you have to let them know the shot clock as well. When you're on TV, you don't have to do any of that. When you have internet video, you don't have to do any of that. In fact, the audience sometimes, whether they think about it or not, are a little bit insulted by you explaining that there was a goal or that play is stopped because referees called a penalty or whatever it is, because they can see that. You're not a storyteller on TV. You are a story embellisher. You're adding to it. You may still tell some stories about the players involved or, what happened in a trade today or who's on the injured list or whatever it may be. But not about the action. Folks can see the action, so you're just adding to it. And I can't tell you the number. Listen, when you're watching a TV broadcast, see how many times either the play-by-play or color person just makes some guttural response to what happened. Oh, one of those, because you can see it. So the fact that they react to it embellishes, helps the emotion on that. Whereas if you're doing it on radio, you've got to explain all of that. So when you listen to TV on the radio, you're not getting a storyteller, you're getting a story embellisher. And I don't think that is what the radio audience has bargained for. Now, you could argue with me that I'm old and I'm just used to the old ways and people don't really care anymore and all they want to know is the score and whenever they happen to mention the time left and all that. Nobody really cares. And you may be right. But I do care. I can't help it. And I care because I've done both. I know that they're different. I know that to do either one, you have to adjust what you're doing. And I wonder, Steve Mears, that'll be a big job now to be on both. Will he just do a TV broadcast and let people take their lumps? And when he talks about a replay that the radio audience can't see, there are ways to do it, but you gotta rehearse it. You gotta know it. Because it doesn't come naturally when you've done TV for a long time. You can't tell an audience, like for example, radio, we're told don't say what number they are. No one cares on radio what the number is on the jersey. On TV, you can use it to help you. You can say, number 7, you see right there, that is so-and-so. So you look at it differently. You have an internal time clock on radio about score and time left. And in hockey, you've got to mention what's left in the penalty. It's just different. In fact, I would bet that most announcers who have done both, if you ask them what they like better, I will, again, there'll be a small percentage that like TV better because it's often thought of as kind of the elevated, position, make more money position. But if it just came down to which one you got to do, regardless of the money, I think almost everybody would do radio. Because you get to tell the story. You get to control the emotion. I went back and did a radio. When I say back, just because of time, I hadn't done it for a while. Did a baseball game on the internet, a high school game down at Grove City this past season. The eventual state champ, New Albany, was down there. And I'd been doing a lot of video internet basketball leading up to that, and it was an adjustment. I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss a radio broadcast on the radio. I'm going to miss Bobby Mack's turn of phrase, especially the goals. I had to talk my wife off the ledge when she found all this out because she will get in the car and drive and listen to the Blue Jackets. I bet you there are other people that do that too. And that's no insult to Steve and to Jody. Again, they're big time. They're very good at what they do. And if you listen to them on the radio, you'll know stuff. You'll know, you'll figure out who wins. But for those of us in the old time, it's just, for all the reasons I mentioned, replay. I wonder, we didn't find out what they're going to do when the networks take over and do the game on TV. And remember, they won't do it then locally. Are they still going to do the radio then? I hope they will. But all this came about. Now, let me tell you why it happened. And again, I want to be fair because it's easy to sit here and moan and say, look, I don't think the product will be as good. And again, maybe no one cares as much as I do. But the reason that this all came about, the Blue Jackets aren't the only team doing this. We did a little bit of research yesterday, and what turned up was that Buffalo, Carolina, the defending Stanley Cup champions, Dallas, LA Kings, New York Islanders, and St. Louis are doing this same thing. So there's 7 teams out of the 32 that are doing a simulcast. So it's not a matter of not, kind of nickel and diming this thing. That's not the issue here. I thought at first it might be, but I don't think it is now after doing the research. I think the Blue Jackets saw what was happening, and now they don't have their regional sports network. FanDuel is gone. And it's now the NHL Productions. And that has changed the financial structure of the way. And we talk about that in the article that we wrote yesterday. Because it used to be, last year, the regional sports network, they would pay the team a guaranteed check. And again, this is what our research shows. If I'm wrong about this, I hope somebody will comment and let me know. But what we're seeing is that the team would get a check from that regional sports network, and it didn't depend on viewership. I mean, you maybe at the, kind of to get the big number, but then they didn't monitor and pay off that during the year. There was a guaranteed check that was coming. Well, with the new structure of NHL Productions, my understanding is that the team pays NHL Productions to create the broadcast. The team gets to keep the ad revenue without giving that over or splitting it in some way with the regional sports network. So in other words, check goes from the team to the NHL Productions to do this thing. And NHL Productions will be able to streamline a lot of what they do because they have now at least 4 teams. And my guess is that it'll be more than that eventually. So there's going to be some economies of scale for them, but they're going to need money to do that. And that's what the team pays for. Then the team's got to go out and sell to make their dough. But the problem with that is you've got to spend up front some customer acquisition costs that could be significant. So if you can save, and again, it's not just Bob's or whoever's salary as the radio announcer. It's the travel and staff and other parts of it that add up. And you say to yourself, that's money we can acquire customers for this new financial setup. So I don't think it was an arbitrary decision at all. I'm just sad about it. And I think ultimately fans, at a time when the Blue Jackets are, trying to fight this, hey, you haven't made the playoffs, and look at the collapse last year and all the controversy this summer. Well, actually, it's like a week full, but about 3 months worth in a week. This is just not a good addition to that dialogue. Don't think they had any choice. At least they were forthright, and, we didn't find out the night before the first broadcast, but I'm sad about it. I'm sad for Bob. I thought he brought life to his broadcasts. I think he told the story really well. I'm going to miss not being able to tell old war stories about minor league baseball. But I'm also going to miss being in the car when I can't be at a road game, for example, and having to fight through interpretation. Again, not because the announcers are failing, but because it's just hard. I think it's impossible to do a really good radio feed from TV without insulting the television crowd. And you don't want to say over and over again, for our friends on the radio, listening on the radio. That gets old. And it slows down the action of the game. You can do it once in a while, but it's just not something that you can do to kind of bail yourself out on this. I mean, they're going to have a real challenge. And they're good at what they do, but it's going to be a challenge. So, just to kind of wrap it up and quit whining. Yeah, I'm going to be sad. And I'll be fair. I mean, as we listen to this and because again, when they're out of town, I listen as much as I watch probably. That's a time to get some other stuff done for CBUS Sports. And I just like it. I like having radio. I still do it with baseball and basketball, football. I mean, I just like radio. It's just, I grew up with it. My dad did it. So yeah, the part of me is it's nostalgic. And I get that I still like reading newspapers. So, and I know I'm way out of time on that. I mean, that's anachronistic at its very best. I mean, I just like newspapers. But I know that's out of step now. But is this? I mean, I just don't think so. I think this is a different animal. So let's leave it at that. Interested in your comments, you can always email us at info@cbusports.com. Let us know what you're thinking about all these things. I just wanted to take today and do that. Again, Bob's always been nice to me. And again, lent an ear so I could tell some stories. So we're going to miss him. But, that happens in sports, right? We say goodbye to players and, well, I mean, you in sports, you get hired to get fired, all kinds of things. Just this one just kind of hit and unexpectedly, right? So there you go. All right. That's enough of that for today. Again, it was a good day eventually with our newsletter. We got it out. You can sign up for the CBUS Sports newsletter. It goes out on Thursday mornings. Do that right on the front page at cbusports.com. Hope you will. We'll fill you in with a little bit more information on that. Kind of the shorter stuff that we can't find space for in the on the website. So sign up there. And then talk to Bobby Bolin of